David Lammy now. We can actually see the moment he was interrupted by protesters at this conference, which we think is at the Fabian Society.
100 days into Israel's indiscriminate bombing campaign against Palestinians. When will you condemn the genocide? How many more children need now?
And as we can see there, that is a protester who got onto the stage with a Palestinian flag, saying that the government should do more about a ceasefire, and that they're basically got blood on their hands for not intervening in the situation in Israel and Gaza. And you do have to question, that was at the Fabian Society, and so it's 5 protesters in total now, we understand, all with Palestinian flags, invading the stage there. David Lammy has been ushered off to the rear of the stage. They're shouting, they're waving the flags, and no sign of aggression that we can witness at the moment. And the audience look fairly stunned. And you have to wonder where security is. I mean, that chap's just been escorted out now. You have to wonder what the security were doing. Again, that's a third protester there. I'm not sure if you can make out in the audio what he's actually shouting. Again, it is... Right, OK. Very interesting. The audience are now booing this protester who is standing in the audience, gesticulating. Again, nothing violent, just very angry shouting about the Palestinian-Gaza situation. This is the third protester. Security are once again coming in. So David Lammy was safely escorted off the stage. The audience are still booing, but most of them sitting there looking fairly shocked. This chap is obviously clearly very angry and saying basically the ceasefire argument. Coming back to my panel on this one, Benjamin, what do you make of what you're seeing here?
I mean, look, you know, these events are pretty easy to get into, so you have no idea whether they even support the Labour Party, which is what the Fabian Society is affiliated to in the first place. I think that this really reminds me of the concerns about the safety of MPs.
Yes.
I mean, David Lammy is Shadow Foreign Secretary at a time of very heightened tensions around various foreign policy issues. And although, as you could see in the footage, he was taken away just before any of these people actually got onto the stage, you know, there will have been no serious security checks at an event like this, most likely. I've been to lots of Fabian Society events, lots of other ones like them. You know, they don't search you as though you're going into Parliament.
Can you just explain for those who aren't sure what the Fabian Society actually are?
So it's sort of a think tank, and a very old think tank, more than 100 years old, that is affiliated to the Labour Party, to the left, rather, and it does lots of conferences where it develops ideas about left-wing, centre-left-wing thinking. And so David Lammy will have been their keynote speaker today. And, you know, you don't need to be a Labour Party supporter or Green Party supporter or any of those things to go to this event. So they're pretty easy to target as a protester. And what I would say is that, you know, you've seen these issues with Keir Starmer having glitter thrown over him, far more seriously, 2 MPs, a Labour and a Conservative, stabbed. And for me, it just reminds me that, you know, a lot of these events are really easy to infiltrate.
Darren, that's a very fair point, isn't it? I mean, David Lammy, we understand, does return to the stage, and there are 2 more protesters who then get up and interrupt the conference again. But it's a fair point, isn't it? I mean, so we obviously Joe Cox, David Amess in Southend. The security of MPs at the heightened tension we have in the world now has never been more important. And I understand what our Benjamin is saying there, that it's a Fabian Society and it's not security heavy, but maybe it should be when you've got someone of David Lammy's stature there speaking.
Absolutely, and well, as it happens, you know, I think the Labour Party have actually taken the right stance on this, and they're suffering the repercussions from half of their parliamentary party that vehemently disagrees with them. I mean, you've got the sort of Zara Sultana Tumblr politics of the world who are saying all of these things, and Dawn, I dare say half the people that are getting up and protesting there, they wouldn't last 2 minutes in Gaza. It's one of these things where I do think actually they are thick, privileged prats for the most part, and And I won't hold back on that. But I actually think, why is it, Dawn, that we're seeing the politics of the Middle East play out at conferences to actually support the policy plan and proposals of a Labour Party that's potentially going to be in government?
Firstly, just to apologise for the language there if you were offended. Passions are running high. David Lammy, this happened slightly earlier. We're showing you the footage now. David Lammy returns to the stage after being interrupted by 3 pro-Palestine protesters. And I believe there are 2 more now. He seems to be quite robust and making a joke about what's happened, not about the situation, about himself. And here is our 4th protester. This is a younger chap at the back of the hall again.
Change through power, not protest.
Right.
Change through power, not protest. Change through power, not protest.
And as you can hear David Lammy there repeating his mantra, change through power, not protest. But as then I think there's a 5th protester about
entered our language originally as a medical term. The moment when the patient either begins to recover or begins to slip away. And the word itself, crisis. You know,
you can hear David Lammy just started speaking again, and now we have the 5th protester. Obviously, this is a clearly organised event. This is another young man at the back of the stage who is again making the same points about
through power, not protest, my friend.
Ceasefire in Palestine.
We all want a sustainable ceasefire.
David Lammy's remaining remarkably calm, still on stage. That's 5 protests now at David Lammy at the Fabian Society meeting this afternoon. Thankfully, the protesters were peaceful and no one's been hurt. There was no attacks on David himself. He was escorted off the stage and now escorted back. Seems to be taking it in good humour. But obviously, I'm sure this must be... You would be quite shaken. I mean, Benjamin, that is quite unnerving for anybody.
Yeah, I mean, look, David Lammy's been a Labour MP for more than 20 years, so I suspect this is not the first time that he's seen a protest like that. But we've seen it at every level. You know, US President Joe Biden was targeted in a very similar way at a speech recently. What I would say to those protesters, of course, they're quite entitled to their view, and protest is a sort of part of our free society. But given that Netanyahu, the Israeli Prime Minister, isn't even listening to the US President, its closest ally, I really doubt that they could care less what the shadow Foreign Secretary in the UK thinks, let alone the protesters. Well,
no, exactly. But, I mean, I think with heightened tensions, I keep coming back to this fact that, it is David Lammy, and he's been a politician for a long time. He has been around the block. He is used to protest. But with the heightened tensions we have seen around the world at the moment, he would have been shaken by that.
Absolutely. I mean, we had Mike Freer the other week saying that actually he's refusing to stop after an arson attack in his constituency office, that he's actually refusing to not go ahead with one-to-one surgeries. An important part of being an MP is meeting people and helping them on an issue that they might have. But I think it's a reality that we've got to accept now, Dawn, that we're entering an era in which it's just not safe for MPs to do that without the person being vetted and then checked upon arrival. And what a damning indictment on where we are as a society.
Absolutely. And Benjamin, I mean, obviously, everyone has the right to protest, but we have seen now, since October the 7th, when Hamas went into Israel and those awful, awful attacks, we have seen weekly protests now. And yet the situation is ongoing and getting worse in the Middle East. So are these protests, what we've just seen now, are they actually achieving anything?
Well, they've achieved a lot in the sense that they've attracted a lot of media attention, a lot of debate. They've certainly put some Labour MPs under considerable pressure. So you saw people like Jess Phillips, the West Midlands Labour MP, resigning from her shadow ministerial post. She has a very Muslim constituency. And so I think a lot of MPs have heard the voice loudly. But in terms of the actual situation in the Middle East, the position of the government or the Labour Party, they've had